Okay, I don't know how this recording is gonna go, but I'm just trying to get the creative juices flowing. So I'm gonna do a something similar to the Dead Space video about what gun is better, but instead I'm gonna compare two games, and those games are going to be two Assassin's Creed games since I played a little bit of Black Flag and ARG, matey. But I want to compare Black Flag and Rogue because besides story, they're fundamentally the same. In terms of the naval combat and the general gameplay, but they each stand. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin. I'm not going to include Assassin's Creed 3 because that was just. I don't have that many fond memories about it. Like the story wasn't too bad, but as I said before about in a previous video about gameplay story the story fucking over the gameplay. I'm not too fond of Assassin's Creed 3, but Black Flag and Rogue were leagues ahead of Assassin's Creed 3. But let me just cut the chit chat here and get to the point, or try to. Yeah, Black Flag and Rogue, they're set like 30ish some odd years apart. One's about a pirate, Edward Kenway, about his, fucking journey of trying to get fame and fortune. And the other one, Rogue, is about a man named Shay Patrick Cormac. Great fucking Irishman, as opposed to the Welshman Edward. And we get to see his, descent from being an assassin to becoming a Templar. But in terms of like which one's better, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Because you look at Black Flag, the story on the surface, yeah, it's Edward's journey of trying to get fame and fortune, to be an important man by trying to use one of the pieces of Eden, aka the observatory, to get his way. But as time goes on, things aren't really too kind to Edward, because with every single act of violence and theft from the crown and whatnot, it's like, how do I explain? To me, I consider it similar to Red Dead Redemption 2's story about the outlaws and how their time kind of came to an end. And that's kind of like what Black Flag is. It's kind of like at the height of the piracy era in the Caribbean, and you see that shit just descend into madness, how they like start to crack down on the pirates heavily, and you just see them go from the top of the pedestal straight down to Davy Jones' locker. It's a rather great story, especially for Edward, about how he has to suffer so many losses of being a pirate asshole till he finally turns around and like betters himself with the Assassin Order. Especially when this YouTuber JV, I think I mentioned before in the previous video about one of the Assassin's Creed videos, he went to a more deep and analytical prospect. I don't know. I really suck at this. He just did a deep dive into the story of Edward, and it kind of did a good job about it. About how he had to learn from his mistakes. And there's like deeper meaning behind the story of Black Flag. It really helps highlight a whole lot more and show how Black Flag's story is a really good fucking story instead of it just being, oh, it's a pirate fantasy. But beyond that, there's the gameplay loop. It's really amazing going after the ships to get resources, to keep improving the Jackdaw. It really does help to make the Jackdaw feel like a character in and of its own. The side characters are amazing. The environments are spectacular. It actually felt enjoyable sailing from one side of the map to the other in the Jackdaw, as opposed to Odyssey with just its massive, empty, like, amounts of water and just barren, uninteresting, landmass. Like, it just felt a lot more enjoyable in Black Flag. Even whenever you go to one of the tutorial islands after you get the Jackdaw, I actually didn't mind going off of every checklist on like the menu that pops up, Abaco Island, I think. And I collected all the shit. Obviously, I don't do that for like the side islands when you're in the Jackdaw and all that shit, like the loose chests and animus fragments. So I was just like, yeah, I don't care about that. But in terms of like making all the icons gold on the map, I always went through that. But beyond that, gameplay's satisfying. There is a little bit of jank here and there. In particular, you know, with the combat animations, how they can get interrupted by someone else instantly while you're in the middle of a execution streak. But, you know, you just tend to live with it because that's just what's happened in those type of Assassin's Creed games. And yeah, that's like pretty much it for the Black Flag side of it. You know, great pirate fantasy, has a deep story hidden in there as well. Great set of side characters that grow with Edward as well. Great gameplay loop with the Jackdaw. It's just a good pirate fantasy. But then we go to the other side of the spectrum with Rogue. And in my camp, I dub it Black Flag 1.5 or 2.5, however the fuck that status quo goes. And I kind of love and hate Rogue. And the reason why I love and hate it is because for everything they tried doing for it, I fucking loved it. But I hate it because there was like a misfire along the way. Or it ran really short. Like it was going good first, and then it just fell apart. And what I mean by that is, with the story, it was rather unique. Fuck the story of Assassin's Creed 3 about the bait and switch where you're playing as a Templar. Fuck that, fuck Hatham, I don't care about that. No, in this case, you saw, like, an assassin, a full-fledged assassin that was, like, willing to die for the Creed, all of a sudden do a complete 180 after being saved by some Templar sympathizers, and he has a change of heart, albeit it's in a different, you know, it's set in a different place, I guess. And I mean, what Rogue was basically trying to do is it was trying to make a gray line between the Assassins and the Templars. Because in the earlier games, it really did make it clear-cut in a way that the Assassins were the heroes and the Templars were the villains. But, I mean, through, you know, like the Borgia being assholes, destroying Rome and all that shit, and the Assassins trying to do their best to, you know, minimize casualties and try to prevent them from getting the Peace of Eden, even though it's not overlooked the fact that Ezio most definitely killed all those innocents in that underground city, in that mountain, during that one-side sequence in Revelations that completely fucking interrupted the flow of the story, in my opinion. But, sorry, Ezio. Now's not your time right now. Back to the Kenway Saga. At least with Rogue, it was definitely trying to paint the Templars not necessarily as like the evildoers that the Assassins would paint them as, because as you saw earlier on Rogue, the Assassins were definitely fucking up with that particular piece of Eden in that city that Shay was sent to collect, but they had no knowledge of what the fuck its powers were capable of, and as a result, thousands and thousands of people were fucking killed in that earthquake. So, Rogue, again, just did a good job of, like, showing the Templars as not necessarily chaotic good, but they were kind of just like, yeah, you know, they are trying to minimize the damage here. They're trying to, you know, keep people safe, but in a more controlled, protected aspect. Kind of like the protected father, so to speak. While the Assassins were more of the rebellious freedom, like the teenage daughters kind of thing, without any regard for other people's safety. That's the best metaphor I can give. So that story was pretty fucking cool. I loved seeing Shay's transformation from an assassin to a Templar, especially hunting down those that he once called friends. And, like, all that stuff was kind of fucking cool, but my problem with the story, it ended so fucking quick. Because if I'm right, like, the first 3 sequences were you being an assassin, as far as I can remember. Because I think the first sequence was you getting the Jackdaw, getting the air rifle, I think, or just not the Jackdaw. Fuck! The Morgan. The Morgan. And, giving you the ropes at the Devonsport homestead. Then the second sequence, you were hunting down an actual Templar to get the air rifle, I think. Then the third sequence is you going to that city, then coming back, being betrayed by your, assassin fucking, handlers. Even though, to be fair, the assassins were the ones that were out of line. They didn't listen to Shay. It wasn't until towards the end where one of the headmasters was like, damn, maybe we should have listened to Shay. Yeah, if you would have listened to Shay, your fucking close friends and allies wouldn't have been fucking murdered by his hand, asshat. And, yeah. And then the other three sequences are literally you hunting down your, assassin brethren with some sprinkles of, flash forwards to, some missions that tie into Unity, funnily enough. And, you have, like, the modern day segments that interrupt the fucking story, sadly, and demote one of the previous antagonists to literally a baddie on the screen. Spoilers, Juno, who is, released after Desmond freed her to protect the world. Yeah, she just gets fucking demoted to, like, a fucking ghost in the machine. Really fucking shit. And that's it. You stop the assassins, kinda. You literally kill the colonial assassins, which helped lead to Assassin's Creed 3. And it's just like, that's it. The story's over. And obviously the last mission ties directly into Unity, but it just... that's it? Like, there's no other extra missions to explore Shay. We don't get, like, a definitive conclusion with him. It's just, I follow this creed, my new creed with the Templars, and that's it. It's like, really? Compared to, like, the emotional ending with Black Flag, where, you meet with one of your family members, so to speak, and you sail, you sail with the credits rolling, you have, like, a heartfelt moment of trying to connect with your long-lost family member here, after another, like, tear-jerking scene with all your past comrades dead, showing up to bid you farewell. It's just like, it was a lot more emotional and satisfying with Black Flag as opposed to Rogue. And then we get into the gameplay, which... the gameplay's not too bad. I actually don't mind the gameplay for Rogue. Minus the little fucking pussy assassins that hide in the assassin hiding spots. Kind of like making you think on your own feet and go, oh, now you gotta go up against, the skills that are meant to hunt you down, since you're now a Templar, but it's just like, man, fuck you. They always get the fucking jump on you. Or at least 75% of the time they manage to get a hidden strike on you. It just pisses you off. And then I don't know what the fuck happened with Rogue, but for some odd reason, whatever it was, like, how the map was designed with the Arctic and the river valley, or them just trying to pad out the time since they kind of knew the story was really on the short end, it really did feel like it was more of a collectathon. Like, that's why, I kind of like Black Flag, because it was like a positive feedback loop. With Black Flag, you would go to an island, collect some of the resources. You get some Animus fragments that, best to my knowledge, was meant for the challenge, which really are kind of pointless, because why would you put, cheats? Why would you enable cheats that's going to kill your save? Like, fuck that. I want to use the cheats whenever I want to. But anyway, do that, collect the chests that give you money, hunt down the balls that actually give you a story about some guy's past. I don't know who the fuck he is. I gotta read those bottles sometime. And then you hunt down the schematics, which weren't schematics, it was treasure maps that led you to a treasure on a different island. It was like a positive feedback loop. You'd find this treasure, go to another island, clean up all the side content on that island, get that fucking, elite upgrade for your ship or for your character. Then you'd find another treasure map, and you keep going. You go across the entire fucking map, upgrading the jackdaw, getting animals to upgrade your character. It was just really satisfying to go on that loop for a few hours to make, you know, Edward the best fucking pirate. And given some of that loop is prevalent in Rogue, but now there was extra shit that was added in there that you're kind of just like, I didn't need this. You know, like, one of the sins that I kind of hate about Rogue was that there was no special side quest. You know, like the Templar hunts from Black Flag. Best fucking side quests in any Assassin's Creed game, especially for the reward, the Templar armor. There was nothing like that in Rogue. And I was hoping there was, like, some sort of badass armor. There isn't. There was 3 sets of armor. There was the Templar Knight armor, the Viking armor, and there was the Native American armor. But they weren't appealing. You know, at least with the Mayan seals from Black Flag, they gave you some badass piece of Eden armor, made you look like fucking makeshift Iron Man. The Templar armor gave you resistances to all forms of damage, like cutting it by 25%. And then I think that was it, really. But in Rogue, they basically took the Templar armor, cut it in half, and if I recall correctly, the native... You know, I actually gotta look up. I want to make sure I get this shit right. Okay, so I'm glad I decided to look it up. So, you have the native armor that reduces damage from enemy melee attacks. It doesn't even tell you what percentage it is. So I'd have to assume it's like 25%. Then there's the 11th century armor, the Templar outfit. And you got, you know, fucking reduces the damage from projectiles. But it just doesn't feel rewarding. The native armor just does not look as interesting as the Mayan armor. And the 11th century armor just, yeah, I don't want to be a Templar knight. Fuck that. At least the Templar armor from Black Flag, given it may look a little stuffy and heavy, especially when you're like in, what, 90, 100 degree Caribbean weather maybe? I don't fucking know. It was probably humid over there. But, I mean, at least Edward looked badass. It looked like it could suit him on a ship, in the cities, all that shit. When I look at the fucking native armor, or the Templar armor, God forbid the Viking armor, which is another collectible armor, but it doesn't even give you any fucking benefits, it seems. They just look unappealing. It just feels like I don't want to hunt for them. And then there's a fuck ton of collectibles. Between all that shit, you know, the fucking... The what? There's, you know, the native pillars for that shit. And then you gotta do all the Templar maps for the Templar armor. You gotta collect all the Viking swords. There was another bottle quest, I think, about stories. And then, you know, there's the prosperity items that help improve your, you know, real estate shit. I think that was, like, the only cool thing that I liked about it. It just didn't really feel... They didn't interest me, unlike the side quest from Black Flag. And as a result, it felt pointless to actually collect that shit, especially because, you know, it didn't appeal to me. I wasn't going to use it. At least with the shit in Black Flag, I was actually compelled to do it. The Mayan armor actually looked kind of fucking sick. There was an actual story behind them. These collectibles, they don't really have a story with them besides the native armor, I think, because I think there was a little bit of a story with that, but I mean, I don't care for it. The native armor replaces the Mayan armor, and it sucks for that. And the Templar armor was split into the 11th century Templar armor. Fuck, I don't know. Okay, sorry. The Templar armor was split up into all of that, I think. If I'm right, the Mayan armor gave you immunity to projectiles. But now that shit was gimped to 25 or 50%, I assume. And there's no meaningful quest for a Templar armor-esque armor. I don't know. Long story short, the armors suck in Rogue. collectibles suck. It kind of, you know, ruins the gameplay. But otherwise, in terms of, like, the basic gameplay, it works. I like the Morgan. I think the Puckle gun was kind of a downgrade as opposed to, like, the very powerful and automatic swivel guns. I guess the flamethrower in the back was kind of cool, but it was semi-situational, like the fire barrels, and the icebreaker for the Morgan, again, situational. Still acted as a good ram, but whatever. And yeah, I mean, the only thing really holding up Rogue was the story. Like, the gameplay wasn't too bad either. The environments were kind of okay, but they weren't as, like, eye-catching and eye-popping as Black Flag. So, yeah, to sum it up, it's just like, obviously Black Flag wins. Black Flag is the definite winner. Not saying you should discount Rogue, but it's like, if you wanted to go in order, even though the order in terms of the release was 3, Black Flag, and Rogue, there is chronological order. It goes Black Flag, Rogue, and then 3. But sadly, when you play it in that order, as opposed to the chronological order, it's like this. Chronological order, shit game, amazing game, mid-tier game. But if you go Black Flag, Rogue, and 3, it's great game, mid-tier, and then straight to fucking shit. At least it's a little bit more consistent in terms of the descent of madness, as opposed to complete shit early on, an amazing middle, and a mediocre end. That's basically it. But I mean, if you want the full story with the Kenway saga, you kind of have to play it that way. It just sucks that, you know, no matter which way you play it, whether it be in chronological as to the release or chronological in terms of the time period, it's still going to suck for an end, you know? But hey, you know, at least Black Flag still rules, and hopefully, you know, Ubisoft doesn't do something to fucking pull all the shit down. Oh, but also, side thing, Kenway's fleet, Shay's fleet, it was better in Black Flag as well, even though, as much as I hate to say it, you know, the only reason why it was good is because it has an online component, so that, you know, you can set your ships on the most lucrative shit, give the game a break for a day or two, then come back to it and instantly come back to over hundreds of thousands of reals for doing nothing. As opposed to Shay's fleet, that shit's locked off towards story progression, so that kind of sucks. But to each their own. But, yeah, I just want to do this little video here saying, you know, comparing them somewhat in terms of, like, story, some of the gameplay, what I hate about them, what I like. Even though it's half-assed, kind of. I don't know. Man, my head's still wrapping around that armor. I don't know why. Because I'm trying to, like, piece together, like, obviously they split the Templar armor into 2 Collectathon armors that equally suck. But it's like, the Mayan outfit was literally meant to, you know, immune to firearm damage, and the Templar armor was, you know, 25% to all damage taken. But it's like, what? It was split, and then obviously, you know, the native armor is the one that cuts melee damage down, and it has a similar role to the Mayan armor in terms of how you collect, and there's a little bit of a story behind it. And then the Templar Sentry armor is like the shit that, you know, cuts your, yeah, the projectile damage down, and then like the Viking armor is what? Just an add-on outfit for shits and giggles? I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know why I make that type of, like, comparison, but that's just how I see it. Oh, but if there is one redeeming factor about Rogue is there's a katana. Yeah, you can be a weeb somewhat in Rogue. So I guess that's one benefit that kind of saves it a little bit. Because, come on, katanas, man. Fucking way of a samurai. I don't know. Like, comment, subscribe, dislike it. I don't know. Whatever. Manager's clocking out for tonight. Bye.